Hi, today I'm with John Dykin, who's a financial expert down in the Malaga area. So, hi, John, how are you doing?
Thanks, David. I'm fine. Nice to be in your program. Many thanks for inviting me.
So, you've got the red dust, I presume, down there as much as we have, yeah?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the sky, it's a bit yellowish, and it's a really bad idea to clean your car right now because when it pours down, it's just a lot of mud on the car. So, unfortunately, we got it everywhere down here as well.
Yeah, my pool is absolutely in a right state, unbelievable, but I can't even go near it. It's just depressing. There's so much red sandy. I can't believe it, but there you go. So, John, just a little bit about yourself. Whereabouts are you from originally, and why Spain? Why did you choose Spain?
Right. So, I'm from Sweden, and I came down to Spain for obvious reasons, same with everyone else. I think love the climate here, the lifestyle. Um, my wife's from Spain as well, so I'm kind of like stuck here for a long time. And yeah, I just really enjoy life here in the south of Spain. I live in Fuengirola, just outside Malaga. Been here for 20 years.
20 years. I've been here 19, so I'm pretty much saying. And I take it you've married a Spanish person as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, we have that in common. Yeah, my wife is then. So down there, we got her family here, and yes, I'm fully settled. Yeah, I'm much more linked to Spain now than Sweden or any other country. And I have some family origin in Poland as well, but I never lived there, so just live in Sweden and Spain.
Yeah. So John, just tell us a little bit about your business. What do you do as regards to offering your services? I know you do it to all nationalities, but today we're talking about the British population predominantly. So what sort of services can you offer the British people?
Right. So I'm a private wealth manager for Chase Buchanan, which is an independent wealth management company based in Marbella, in the Malaga area. So we specialize in giving advice to basically expats from all nationalities, but my clients tend to be British, most of them. I can help them restructure their financial affairs to suit the new lifestyle in Spain using Spanish compliant tax efficient solutions.
Great. Right. Now, I always say to people, when I first moved to Spain, I was recommended somebody that just happened to be very good, and I was a little bit lucky, but I went with a good recommendation. And getting the right advice when you first move here is so important. And so many British people just, don't tend to take it too seriously. But getting it right and paying correctly, a professional person like yourself, does save a lot of headaches in the long run, don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, the Spanish system is so much different from other systems such as the UK. So, the tax laws are different. Even the calendar year for taxation is different in the UK. It's 6th of April to 5th of April. In Spain, it's a calendar year. So, you got lots of things to consider. And, it's best time to do it is before you move down. But even for people that have already moved down, I can review the finances and I can help a lot. I can look at lots of things that can be done to save them charges, fees, taxes, and things like that. So it's worth having a review with someone that's knowledgeable and is experienced of giving advice to expats in the local area here in Spain.
Sure. And John, now I talked on my show a little while ago about the new changes, or should I say interpretations of the visa, the non-lucrative visa. So it now means that after a year, people can work here if they wanted to. And the amount that they need to prove isn't double the income in years 2 and 3. Now that's going to open up the doors to a lot of people that thought before they wouldn't be able to come here because of the money needed. Do you think that's going to help in a big way, or do you think there's not going to be much difference?
Yeah, I think it's great news. I think any news that come out that makes it easier for people to come down here to live, it's just great news for everyone. I think the Spanish economy really benefits from foreigners coming down here to live, to buy properties, to spend money in the economy. So it helps people like myself. I mean, many of my clients are foreign nationals that chose to come down here to live. So that's really good news.
Perfect. It's just that I did a will when I first moved to Spain, and it was a lot of intricate things I needed to go through. At the time, I was married to my English wife, my first wife, and it was complicated because we both had family, and it's very technical here with the wills. But then on my second will I made with my Spanish wife, it was much more straightforward. We did it ourselves. I could speak Spanish, so it was a case of just going in and leaving it to my next of kin and her next of kin and make it easier. But having a will here for British people is very important, because even though they've got a will in England, you advise them they should make their will, a new will, here in Spain as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think generally you should have a will in each country where you have assets. So the Spanish will normally should cover your Spanish assets, such as cash in the Spanish banks, any investments you have in Spain, your property in Spain, that should be covered by a Spanish will. And any assets you have abroad, like if you live, if you come from the UK, if you have a property in the UK, it's best to cover it in a separate UK will. But it's also important that the wills don't clash with each other. So it is important that if you have assets in various countries, and especially if you have a large number of assets, then it may be a good idea to get a professional involved. Just make sure it's all set up correctly and doesn't clash with each other.
That's it. Yeah.
Many of my clients, they come from other countries, such as the UK. The tradition in those countries is that if you're married, all your assets go to your spouse or first death, and you only want the assets to go down to your children or second death. But in Spain, that's not really possible. So the good news is that there is a European regulation that came into force, I think it was in 2013, and it still applies to UK nationals even after Brexit. And this regulation allows you, when you go to a notary to set up your Spanish will, you can express that for distribution of assets, you like the law of your nationality to apply, which means that you can, if you got free disposal in your home country, such as in the UK, you got free disposal, that can apply in Spain as well. But it's important to distinguish that what we're talking about now is just distribution of assets. It's got nothing to do with taxation. So that just allows you to choose whoever you want as a beneficiary, but it's got no impact on tax.
So this is why you need somebody like yourself to advise people to get it right the first time, so there's no complications later on down the line. Sure.
And I think one important point to point out, David, is that a lot of my clients, when they think about estate planning, they think it's all about setting up wills, but it's not really about drafting wills only. There's so many other things to think about when you consider what happens with your wealth when you pass away. And I would say that the objectives of estate planning is that, on your death, you should ensure that your assets are passed tax efficiently to whom you want in a simple manner. So a will only covers one of these 3 points, which is who you want to pass it to. Got nothing to do with taxation, and a will doesn't make your assets tax efficient. And it's certainly not always that simple.
Sure.
It is simpler to pass away with a will than intestate, but at least you express your wishes. But there are other ways of passing your assets without a probate process, which is much quicker.
Perfect. Okay, right. So, John, another point is the power of attorney, which a lot of people are interested in here, that they're coming and going in Spain. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so in Spain, you can draft up different types of powers of attorney. It all needs to be done at the notary office. And the general one, the most common one is a general one, which covers, like the name says, everything. So if you give a general power of attorney to someone, they can do almost anything on your behalf. The shortfall of a general power of attorney, though, is that in case you lose some of your mental capacity, then the general power of attorney may not continue to be valid. So there is another power of attorney, which is called preventive power of attorney, which is in Spanish poder preventivo, which does allow for some loss of mental capacity, and it still continues to be valid. So powers of attorneys, I think, is a great way to protect yourself if you're in Spain, especially if you're on your own. If you got an issue, if you break a leg, you're bedridden, you can't move, then someone that you trust, or a lawyer, can actually go and do some errands for you. They can go to a bank and do transactions for you where they can deal with authority. So I normally recommend powers of attorneys to clients who are on their own, or if they got any serious health issues. And also anyone that has serious health issues, they can also consider in their lifetime while they are still mentally capable to nominate a guardian. So they can go to notary and express that if I, in the future, I'm not capable of looking after myself, I would like this trusted friend or this lawyer to be my guardian. Because if you haven't done that and you lose your mental capacity, then the court, in the UK, they call it court protection, but here just court, they'll just nominate a random person that looks after you. So it's something that you can do yourself. You can make a nomination.
But I get a lot of my clients and followers say that because they're looking for property here, they're coming and going a lot. And with the rules and regulations about the COVID and everything, it's been difficult. So they can give somebody like yourself power of attorney to do transactions and to buy and sell properties on their behalf. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I'm a financial advisor. I normally I don't really ask my clients to give me a power of attorney, but I do think it's a good idea to give it to a lawyer that helps out with a property transaction. So it means that, like you said, COVID, there can be reasons why the client can't come down here physically to complete a transaction, to go to notary. If the lawyer has a general power of attorney, they can go to notary, they can sign any document for you, complete the purchase, and they can do all the work after the purchase as well, make sure it all gets registered for you correctly. You don't need to do anything if you get a lawyer involved with a full power of attorney for you.
Yeah. One of the properties actually I bought here some time ago. I bought and sold several properties, and we had a lawyer who was sitting in on the notary to sign everything. He was the power of attorney for the person whose house we were buying. So they couldn't make it here. They were from another country outside of Spain. So they gave power of attorney, and that's the sort of thing that you would do as well. Yeah, for a British person, you would help with the purchase of a property.
Yeah. So I myself, I don't get involved with property deals in my job, but certainly I think it's a good idea to have a lawyer involved when you buy a property in Spain, because there's so many pitfalls, and because of travel restrictions, things like that, especially nowadays with COVID. And let's see what happens with Ukraine. Touch wood. Then I think it's not a bad idea to keep a power of attorney to trust the person down here in Spain, and not just property deals, but if we go back to protection, like I discussed before about health issues, things like that. Like I've had a client that she had a relative in Canada, but she lived here, and she was in a nursing home, and she needed some help and couldn't really. She wasn't very mobile, and having a power of attorney issued to someone in Canada isn't that practical, because what do you do with that? It's going to be someone down here locally in Spain that can actually act really quickly and help you if you need help.
Yeah, I know several people, British people, that were doing their NIEs and stuff like that before Christmas, before the cut-off period and everything. And because of health issues and travel restrictions, they couldn't come here, and they actually lost the chance of getting their residency, or they lost property sales here because they couldn't actually get here or get somebody to do the power of attorney for them. They left it too late. And I hear several stories like that. It's different now, but before their cut-off period of December, and they couldn't travel and things like that, and they missed out on the visa applications and things like that because they couldn't get all their documents are in Spain. So, having somebody like yourself doing that for them could have saved them thousands. Yeah. Okay, so John, just tell us a little bit about the inheritance tax as well, because a lot of the British people that move here are in their, should I say, golden years, and they're thinking about that sort of thing. So tell us a little bit about that. How should people be more careful, and what do you recommend they should do?
Yeah, so first of all, I think it's important to point out, when does Spanish inheritance tax or succession tax apply? It's quite simple, actually. It's more simple than most people think. So the tax would only, tax liability would only arise if one of the two following conditions is met. One is if it's a Spanish asset involved, such as Spanish bank accounts, Spanish property, or investments held in Spain. The other condition is if the assets are passed on to a Spanish resident beneficiary. So it's either one of those two. So, for example, a typical client has a Spanish property, but their children are back in the UK. So because it's a property in Spain, Spanish succession tax would apply on that property. But if they got financial assets abroad, and their beneficiaries, their children, for example, are abroad, no link to Spain, and there'll be no Spanish tax liability on that inheritance.
Right.
So I think it's important to get advice in that area, especially if you have lots of assets, because sometimes by restructuring your assets, you can save a lot in tax.
Sure.
And to illustrate this, I think it's good if we could just go through a little bit about what kind of taxes you may be liable for here, just in general terms. Of course, this is quite a difficult area that needs a personal review, but generally, at least here in Andalusia, because in each Spanish region has different rules when it comes to inheritance tax. But Andalusia, as an example, it's a big area here, covers a lot of my clients. If they pass on their wealth to their spouse or registered partner, children or grandchildren, then each one of those beneficiaries gets a €1 million allowance. So anything up to 1 million, that person can inherit for free. And if it's more than 1 million per person, then you also get the 99% exemption on the excess. So basically, it's going to be a very little tax to pay, even on really large amounts, as long as it goes to one of those beneficiaries I mentioned before. But I think the problem kicks in. I've had some clients over the years that they may not have a spouse, or they've been widowed, and they don't have any children, so they will like their assets to go to a really close friend, or a niece, nephew, or even a stepchild. None of those beneficiaries that I just mentioned would be receiving any benefits like allowances, exemptions. So tax will be payable from €8,000 of inheritance and upwards, and the tax rate starts at about 8%, progressively going up to 45% for large assets. So it can be quite substantial. And one thing to differentiate, for example, from the UK, is that in the UK we talk about estate as such. So you inherit from the estate like a ton of money. But in Spain, they want to talk about the benefits, to beneficiaries. So you get the allowance per person. It's not per estate. So I think you should look at, if you live down here in Spain, it's important to, like I started out initially saying, that estate planning is about passing on assets in a simple way, tax efficiently, to the person that you've chosen. And one way of doing so, a potential solution, is by having a life assurance bond outside Spain, for example, in Luxembourg. So it's like a structure where you can put investments inside. And because it's not in Spain, and if it doesn't go to a Spanish beneficiary, let's say you've got children in the UK and an asset in Luxembourg, there is no Spanish tax on that. Also, there's no need for probate on death, because the life insurance company will pay out directly to the beneficiary, no need for probate. So it's a process that takes weeks and not months. That's quite important to consider, because if you leave substantial assets in Spain, then cash in the bank can get frozen, investments in a Spanish bank can get frozen, property assets are not fully accessible until you've done the whole probate process. And that creates a liquidity problem, because your beneficiaries may need cash to pay the Spanish inheritance tax, but they can't really access the assets to do that.
Yeah.
Like the next scenario. And
so it'd be like having a middleman then, really. If you got it in another country like that, it's like having a middleman that Spain can't get hold of it.
Yeah, exactly. If you've got assets, investments in a luxury bond in Luxembourg, that bond can just pay to your beneficiaries, and no need for Spanish probate. So it keeps things really simple, and it can save tax as well, because I just had a case recently, a client that wanted to give €150,000 to the nephew in another European country, and that money was kept in cash in her bank account here in Spain. And I did some calculations, and I said, look, if you die with this cash, which this client was over 80, then your nephew would have to pay inheritance tax in Spain of €20,000 here in Andalusia. I said, if you just move that asset to Luxembourg, there's no inheritance tax on that asset, at least not in Spain. They may be in their home country, but that's a different story. At least there would have been a Spanish tax on it, and that would save her 20,000 euros.
Big difference. Big difference. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this is why I always recommend people seeing somebody like yourself, especially if you're buying property here, you've got assets, and there's most of the British people that are moving here are slightly older people, so they have got property here, they've got assets from the UK that they're bringing with them as well in the bank account. So it's important to protect their assets. So, well, John, if people want to get hold of you as well, I'm going to leave a link in the description box below this so they can get hold of you to your website and stuff. But also, I believe that you do a video conference call with people if they're interested as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I'm based at Malaga. I mean, if someone is local here at Malaga who move down, I can always meet face to face. But if anyone is living further away, we can arrange video calls. That's not a problem. It's something that's worked out really well. I started doing during COVID. I'm really used to it, and I think it's much better interaction with clients than just a normal phone call. Absolutely. It's something I'd really love to do if anyone's interested.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, okay. Well, that's brilliant news. And all the description, in the description link, I'm going to leave a link to my sites and to John as well, and contact details. So if anybody wants to get in touch with John, if you're buying property here, I recommend it, especially if you're in that area where John is. Get some proper professional advice. Well, thanks very much for joining us today, John. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.